driver slammed on the brakes and Robert went flying. Until, bam, he landed in someone's lawn. He was a broken heap, lying on the ground, motionless. The next thing he knew, he woke up in a hospital. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Assistant District Attorney Vishal Nayapathy. I, along with my co-counsels, Michelle, Athena, Daniel, Hassan, Mohammed, Zari, and Brian, represent the people of New York State. We, the people of the state, have the burden of proving beyond reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of 2 counts of assault in the first degree, and it will be clear at the end of this trial that we have met our burden. On September 1st, 2011, Robert Rodriguez wanted to spend a night with his friends before he went off to Columbia University to pursue his dreams. Susan Abad, Henry Washburn, George McReady, and he all met up at Robert's house. They drank some microbrews and tried to have a good time. They decided that they should reminisce their childhood trips to McDonald's and take a nostalgic visit there. They all got into George's SUV and went to McDonald's at the corner of Northern Boulevard and Marathon Parkway in Little Neck, Queens. The parking lot was well lit and average size for any McDonald's. The group went inside the McDonald's and ordered some nuggets, fries, and other foods. They went out in the parking lot and gathered at George's SUV to eat. At around 8:00 p.m. that night, the defendant and her friends, Joy Davis, Roy Arbus, and Stefan Larson, appeared at the scene. The 2 groups conversed. Susan and Stefan went off to the side to talk about the on and off relationship that they had been having throughout high school. An argument broke out between the 2. Screaming and yelling filled the silences, until finally one punched the other and the fight got out of hand. People from both groups joined the fight. Roy, Steph, George, and Henry were punching each other and cutting each other with broken beer bottles. The violence had shifted from the McDonald's to a nearby street. The street was dark, narrow, and full of trees. Robert followed, trying to break the fight up. That's when Robert lost track of the defendant. Robert heard the rev of an engine. He knew that this was the sound of the same 2005 Volkswagen Jetta that the defendant had driven him around in. The evidence will show that the defendant had been driving her dangerous car directly into a crowd of people. You will learn that she had intent for driving her car into this crowd, possibly at a specific person. Robert had allegedly bullied her throughout high school. Robert and the defendant knew each other for a very long time. They had gone to the same high school, they had the same classes, and they had both been academically competitive. The defendant had driven her car to the crowd. Robert and his friend George jumped on top of the car. Robert and George begged for the defendant to stop the car. Suddenly, after screams, yells, and pleads, the car came to a quick stop. The defendant had slammed on the brakes and Robert went flying in the air. Robert hit the ground in someone's lawn. He had suffered from serious medical injuries. He suffered from a damaged liver, a damaged spleen, which he had to get removed the night of the incident, a punctured lung, 6 broken ribs, a shattered femur, a shattered elbow, and cuts all over his body, and even glass stuck in his wounds. To add to the mess, Robert deferred at Columbia. His dreams are crushed, just like the bones in his leg. EMTs and police cars were already at the scene. 10-year veteran police officer Joe Fiends, who saw the event happen. He approached the Jetta and saw the defendant come out of the car. He placed her under arrest at the spot. You will learn that before placing her under arrest, the defendant thought she might have actually killed Mr. Rodriguez. At the end of the trial, my co-counsel, Michelle Cohn, will come before you and ask you to find the only reasonable and rational outcome. The only verdict is consistent with the evidence and consistent with justice, that the defendant is guilty of both counts of assault in the first degree. Thank you.
She never said once that she intended to do it. The intent's an essential element of the crime. Go ahead.
May I proceed?
She's going to make a motion to us anyway, so go ahead.
Rachel Citron can be compared to a brave knight clad in brilliant, shining armor. armor that possesses the power to remain unsusceptible against a dangerous influence. Now, even with the series of chaotic events rapidly developing, Rachel was still focused on the welfare of her friends. Her sole notion was to embark on a rescue mission to save herself and her companions. Now, Rachel and her 3 friends simply went out on the night of September 1st, 2011, to reminisce past high school experiences before finally going off to college. But because of Robert Rodriguez's mistakes, the evening steadily snowballed into a disastrous event, which resulted in multiple serious injuries and the arrest of a totally innocent young woman. My name is Jared Times, and I am Rachel's defense attorney. The defense will prove that Rachel is, in fact, justified in her actions. You will hear the testimonies of Rachel Citron, Joy Davis, and Dr. Lauren Michaels. Through these testimonies, you will hear the incredible anguish felt by Rachel that night. In this case, the prosecution does possess the burden, so they have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, that Rachel was indeed guilty. By beyond reasonable doubt, you have to have infinitesimal doubt that she was guilty. The prosecution will not meet their burden simply because Rachel was justified in her actions.
You're the witness? No. You're the witness?
People would like to call Robert Rodriguez to the stand.
Okay. All right. I don't know where the witness is. Come on up. You gonna swear the witness in, or are we gonna? No, that's the stenographer. You sit up here. This nice chair, relaxing chair here. Okay, stand up, raise your right hand. Promise to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
May I inquire?
Go ahead.
Please state your name for the record.
You want to speak up a little bit, so you can hear. Make believe you're out in the courtyard, like you were before upstairs.
Please state your name for the record.
Robert Rodriguez,
How old are you?
20 years old.
And where do you go to school?
I'll be attending Columbia in the fall.
Robert, let me draw your attention to September 1st, 2011. Where were you at 7 p.m. that night?
I was at McDonald's
And where is this McDonald's located?
on Northern Boulevard and Marathon.
Describe the area around this McDonald's.
It's a well-lit area, and across from the McDonald's, there's a neighborhood.
Why were you visiting McDonald's?
To reminisce on old memories.
How did you get there?
We went to my friend's George's SUV.
Who came with you?
It was me, George, Henry, and Sue.
What did you do when you arrived?
We grabbed something to eat, and we cracked open a few beers.
After eating and drinking beers, what happened?
Rachel and her party showed up.
Who is Rachel?
Rachel is this girl that I have an academic competition with, and we're either number 1 or number 2.
Do you see Rachel in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Please point at her and identify an article of clothing she is wearing for the record.
she's wearing a white shirt.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified Rachel Citron, the defendant. Who was with the defendant?
It was Rachel, Joy, Roy, and Stefan.
What happened after the defendant and her friend showed up?
Susan pulled Stefan to the side.
What were they doing to the side?
They were talking. I really couldn't hear what they were saying.
Who, if anyone, approached this conversation?
George and Henry.
What happened next?
They started fighting, George, Henry, and Stefan.
Describe what you mean by fighting.
They're using tree branches and beer bottles.
Let me bring your attention to your relationship with Rachel. What, if anything, occurred between you and Rachel that night?
She came up to me and she started teasing me.
What happened next?
She pushed me. I pushed her.
What happened after you pushed the defendant?
She pushed me back, and after a minute, I ripped off her earring.
So what happened after you ripped out the defendant's earring?
She stormed out of the McDonald's.
And after the defendant ran away and stormed out, what happened?
I went to calm down the fight.
What happened after you went to calm down the fight?
Everybody heard an engine of a Jetta rev.
Then what happened after you heard the engine of the Jetta rev?
I saw the car was coming right towards me.
How fast was this car going?
It was like a bat out of hell.
What do you mean by a bat out of hell?
It was going really fast, and I was frightened at the time.
What did you do when you saw this Jetta driving toward you?
I jumped on top of the roof.
How were you able to jump on top of the roof of the Jetta?
I did hurdles when I was in high school, so it was kind of an instinct.
And why did you jump on top of the Jetta?
Because that was my only option. It was either that or get hit by the car.
And what, if anything, did you say while you were on top of the roof?
I was yelling at Rachel to stop.
What else did you do on top of the car?
I was slamming it and trying to get the information.
So, what happened after you yelled for her to stop and were slamming on top of the car?
I looked into the car.
And what did you see?
I saw Rachel and her beaming-looking eyes.
Demon-looking eyes. And after that, what happened?
She slammed the brakes.
What do you mean by slammed?
The car abruptly stopped.
And then what happened?
I went flying into somebody else's lawn.
Went flying. And what do you mean by flying?
As the car stopped, I just went in the middle of the air.
And what happened next?
I fell onto the lawn, and my body was practically broken.
What do you mean by broken?
My liver was punctured. I had a cut in my other liver. I had pins all over my legs. I had a shattered elbow. I had a cut on my lip, and a bunch of cuts everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. No further questions.
Remain quiet.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rodriguez.
Good afternoon.
You are a graduate of Great Neck South.
Yes,
You were one of the top-ranked students.
you could say that.
You got into Columbia, an Ivy League school.
Yes,
You achieved a 2350 on the SATs.
yeah,
Rachel accused you of being involved in the SAT cheating scandal.
yes.
So you told her to stop.
What do you mean, told her to stop?
You confronted her and withdrawn. You confronted her
When?
during your relationship with Rachel.
What did I confront her about?
The rumors of the SAT cheating scandal.
Yes, I confronted her.
She reported you to guidance for bullying.
Yes,
And you were found guilty in front of a student tribunal.
yes,
You were also found guilty of bullying other 9th grade girls.
yeah,
So you don't like Rachel.
you could say that.
Directing your attention to the evening of September 1st, 2011. You shoved Rachel that night.
Yeah, I pushed her.
You shoved her, she shoved you back.
Yeah, she did.
Then you tore her earring out.
Yes, because I was frustrated.
She had to get stitches.
I
You
didn't-
tore her earlobe out.
Objection asked and answered.
No?
Most lawyers probably would do the same thing, but that's not up to you to decide, okay? You overruled, you may ask the question.
You tore her earlobe out.
Yes,
She was bleeding onto her shirt.
yes.
You didn't get a bandage.
I didn't get it back.
You didn't get ice.
Why would I get ice?
You don't ask him questions, he asks you questions. You don't answer them or not.
Sorry,
And
no.
answer him, say so.
You didn't go to McDonald's for help.
No.
In fact, you jumped into the fight.
Yes, because I was trying to calm it down.
And you left Rachel.
Rachel left me.
And then you didn't care about Rachel at that moment?
She stormed out of the place.
Well, yes or no? You didn't care about Rachel at that moment.
No.
Okay.
So you left Rachel and went to help your friends.
Yes.
Shortly after you joined the fight, Rachel's Jetta came towards you,
Yes.
and you were looking straight into the headlights.
Yes.
And then you jumped on the roof of the car.
Yes.
The car was moving pretty fast.
It was.
You and George were banging on the car.
Yes.
In fact, you put a dent in the car.
Yes, because we were telling her to stop.
And then George broke the windshield.
Yes, he did.
And you looked inside the broken windshield.
Yes.
And you looked at Rachel's eyes.
Yes.
And all this happened in a matter of seconds.
Yes.
Directing your attention to what you were doing before that evening. Before you came to McDonald's, you and your friends drank alcohol.
Yeah.
This alcohol was your parents that you took.
Yes.
You were 20 years old.
Yes.
The legal drinking age for alcohol is 21 years old.
Yes.
So you disobeyed the law.
Yes.
You felt buzzed.
I felt good. I felt okay.
Yes or no, you felt buzzed.
We'll take judicial notice of what buzz is. Well, no, you don't use terms like that.
You wore glasses,
Yes.
and you weren't wearing them during the fight.
No.
And you weren't wearing them on top of the car.
No.
No further questions.
Any further?
You mean a redirect?
Excuse me?
Do you mean like a redirect?
Yeah, like a redirect, that's what's further, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, redirect, good. Are you giving redirect? I don't know.
We didn't plan on
You
it.
didn't plan on it? Okay, I think that's beyond the plan. You have something.
If you feel like you can, I say go.
Go ahead. Let's see what you do with redirect. Redirect is a very careful line. You better step into it, okay?
So, just to clarify, Rachel was taunting you about saying that you didn't go to Columbia
Yeah, she was taunting me about.
with a full ride.
Yes.
And just to clarify again, why did you jump onto the Jetta?
Because that was my only option.
Objection has to be answered.
No, this is on redirect, but he hasn't brought out anything new or different, so. You have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Defense.
Okay, I'm going to call whoever it is that's the next DA and the defense counsel. See, we have some attorneys looking in here a little confused that we've seen a trial like this before. Worried that this may be their future. All right, Mr. District Attorney, who's your next witness?
The people call Susan Abbott to the stand.
Okay.
May I inquire?
You may inquire.
Please state your name for the record.
Susan Abad.
What is your occupation?
I'm a student.
What school do you go to?
This year I attended Binghamton, but now I'm transferring to Cornell.
Let me bring your attention to the night of September 1st, 2011. Where were you?
I was at McDonald's.
What were you doing before McDonald's?
I was at my friend Robert's house.
What were you doing at Robert's house?
We were just drinking and having a good time.
Who was with you at Robert's house?
Robert, myself, Henry, and George.
How do you know Robert?
We've been friends like forever.
What time were you at Robert's house?
7 o'clock.
Did Did there come any time when you left Robert's house?
Yeah, at 7:30 we went to McDonald's.
What time did you decide to go to McDonald's?
7:30.
How did you get to McDonald's?
George drove us in his SUV.
Where is the McDonald's that you went to?
It is at the intersection of Marathon and Northern Boulevard in Little Neck, Queens.
Describe the McDonald's.
It's a well-lit parking lot. Marathon's a narrow road, and there's some neighborhoods surrounding it.
When you got to McDonald's, what did you do there?
We got some food and then we drank.
What do you mean by drinking?
I had 2 beers.
You had 2 beers, so how are you feeling?
I was feeling okay. Earlier that morning I had a Claritin, but I was feeling perfectly fine.
What happened next after you were eating?
Rachel and her friend showed up.
Who is Rachel?
She's a girl I went to school with. She's also one of my acquaintances.
Do you see Rachel in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Please point at her and identify an article of her clothing she's wearing for the record.
She's wearing a white blouse.
Let the record reflect the witness has identified Rachel Citron, the defendant.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
Who did the defendant come to McDonald's with?
Stefan, Roy, and Joy.
What time did the defendant show up at McDonald's?
Around 8 o'clock.
What happened after the defendant showed up at McDonald's?
I went over to talk to Stefan.
Who is Stefan?
He's this guy I was seeing off Bright High School on and off.
What happened when you confronted Stefan?
We started having a conversation, but then it ended in an argument and I punched him.
What do you mean by argument?
Well, he said something about me owing him money, and I just wanted to talk to him, and I punched him.
What happened after you punched him?
Rachel came over and told us to chill out.
What happened after the defendant came over?
Stefan told her to leave, and she did.
What happened next?
Rachel went over to Robert.
Do you know what they were talking about?
I don't know, but it looked like Robert got her really annoyed, and she kind of left the place.
What did you do after Rachel left the McDonald's?
I went to George's SUV.
What happened after you went to George's SUV?
Everyone was fighting.
Describe what you mean by everyone.
Well, Stefan got involved in an argument with George and Henry, and then Roy and Robert were fighting.
What do you mean by fighting?
It was scary. Like, they were using empty beer bottles, full beer bottles. It was intense.
Where was this taking place?
In the parking lot.
What happened next?
The fighting kind of moved on to Marathon.
Can you describe the street for me?
Marathon's a really narrow road.
What happened after the fight spilled onto the street?
Then I heard Rachel's Jetta.
What happened after you heard Rachel's Jetta?
Then we saw her, like, flying down Marathon towards the fight.
What do you mean by flying?
She was going really fast.
What happened after?
Robert looked panicked, and he and George jumped on top of the Jetta.
What happened after Robert and George jumped onto the Jetta?
They were pounding on it, yelling for it to stop.
What happened next?
Then Rachel stopped short, and then Robert went flying to someone's yard.
What do you mean flying?
Like, the car stopped so short that he just fell off the car.
Thank you, Miss Abbott. No further questions.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
You may.
Hello, Susan.
Hi.
You just finished your freshman year at Binghamton.
Yes.
In the fall, you'll be transferring to Cornell University.
Yes.
And you're a graduate of Great Neck High School.
Yes.
You know Robbie.
Yes.
You and Robbie have been friends a long time.
Yeah, we've been friends forever.
The night of September 1st, 2011, you were with Robbie.
Yes.
You went to McDonald's
Yes.
on Marathon.
Yes.
You were drinking.
Yes.
And before that, you took medication.
Earlier that day, yes.
Claritin D
Yes.
for your allergies. A 24-hour medication.
Yes.
McDonald's, you saw Stefan.
Yes.
He's your on and off boyfriend.
Yes.
You called him over to you.
I went over to him. Yes.
You wanted him to tell you that he loved you.
Yes.
You got frustrated with him.
Yes.
You yelled at him.
Yes.
Punched him.
Yes.
You then saw Rachel.
Yes.
You and Rachel are no longer close friends.
We're not close, but we're still friends.
You are no longer that close due to your loyalty.
Loyalty to.
Loyalty to Robert.
Yes.
Rachel came over to you and Steph,
Yes.
and she told you to chill out.
Yes.
She said that she wanted to help you and Steph.
She never said that, no.
She started pulling Steph away.
Yes.
He told her to leave.
Stefan told her to leave. Yes.
She did start to leave.
Yes.
You thought Steph was cheating on you with Rachel.
Yes.
You cursed at Rachel.
Yes.
Then you saw George and Henry.
Yes.
You told them to help you.
Yes.
George and Henry and Steph got into it.
Yes.
Beer bottles were being swung,
Yes.
and a brawl occurred.
Yes.
You started to get dizzy from fear,
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
and you started crying.
Yes.
Rachel was in her car.
Yes.
She was driving down the street.
Yeah.
It appeared she was heading towards the fight.
Yes.
You were looking in the car's direction,
Yes.
and Robbie was in the middle of the street.
Yeah, it looked like he was aiming for her. She was aiming for him.
Rachel continued driving towards the fight.
Yes.
You heard them yell at her to slow down. Good job. Robert was able to get onto the roof.
Yes.
Well, you withdrawing that question? Yes. What's the question you're asking?
Wait. I
That's
withdrew
the
my last
question.
one. Robert was able to get onto the roof.
Yes.
You heard them yell at her to slow down,
Yes.
and she stopped.
Yes.
You did not really hear the car screech.
Yeah, but I saw it.
You saw Robert fly off the car,
Yes.
and the cops came.
Yes.
Cop cars have flashing lights,
Yes.
and these lights are bright.
Kind of.
These lights are bright, yes or no?
Yes.
Cop cars also have sirens,
Yes.
and these sirens are loud.
Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any further you should answer this? Oh,
Yes.
what is that? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, what did you do at Robert's house?
We were just having a good time.
And when you got to McDonald's, what did you do?
I went over to Stefan.
A little bit before that.
We were eating and drinking.
And you also took a Claritin, correct?
Yes.
But you felt fine?
Yeah, I felt perfectly fine.
No further questions.
You may inquire.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Joe Hines.
What is your occupation?
I'm a police officer,
What precinct are you assigned to?
the 111 precinct.
Where does this precinct cover?
It covers Little Neck and Douglaston and Queens, New York.
What unit are you assigned to?
I'm a part of the youth gang unit.
How long have you been assigned there?
I've been there for about 18 months,
How long have you been a police officer?
for a full 10 years.
Allow me to direct your attention to September 1st, 2011. What were you doing at 8 p.m. on that night?
I was just grabbing dinner with my partner.
What happened next?
It was 8:05, we got into the car and we received a call. And it was about a little gang incident. And it was at McDonald's. We got there around 8:10.
What was going on when you arrived there?
I saw 4 or 5 kids fighting.
Where were they fighting?
They were fighting in the McDonald's parking lot.
Describe the area.
It's a very well-lit parking lot with houses on the other side of the street. The street's called Marathon. It's pretty narrow.
What did you do after you saw them fighting?
Well, I heard two girls screaming and pointing, so I looked over for a second and made sure they were okay.
What happened after you had helped the two girls?
I heard the engine rev and I saw the car start to drive. The car was a Jetta.
Was the car going at any kind of rate?
It was going excessively fast.
What do you mean by excessively fast?
It was going very fast for a very narrow street.
Please describe the Jetta.
It's a 2005 Jetta. It's blue.
What happened after you saw this Jetta driving fast?
I saw the fight start to move into the street, and all of a sudden, the car was going straight toward a group of people, and two boys jumped on top of the car.
What happened next?
They were pounding on the car. They were really banging it. One of them actually made a dent in the car.
What do you mean by pounding?
They were really slamming on the car, and they were yelling for the driver to stop.
What happened after you saw the boys pounding on the car?
I heard a loud screech, and the car stopped abruptly.
What do you mean by abruptly?
It was a really quick stop. Like, all of a sudden, it just stopped.
What did you do after this happened?
Well, I saw the two boys go flying off the car to another yard, and I wanted to make sure they were okay, but I went over to the driver of the car, and I asked her why. She just started saying, what did I do? What did I do?
Who was in the car?
It was Rachel Citron.
Do you see Rachel today?
Yes, I did.
Please point at her and identify an article of clothing she's wearing.
Rachel's in the white blouse.
But please let the record reflect that the witness has identified Rachel Citron, the defendant. What, if anything, did the defendant say as she was being arrested?
She was screaming, what did I do? What did I do? So I told her she could have killed somebody.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, who's on the flag? Is on the flag?
Good afternoon, Officer Fiends.
Good afternoon.
You were trained well for your job.
I'm sorry.
You were trained well for your job.
Yes, I've been working for 10 years.
And you were specifically trained for the issue of dealing with youth gangs.
Yes.
That is your assignment.
For the past 18 months, it has been my assignment.
On the night of September 1st, 2011, you first were notified of a supposed gang violence incident at around 8:05.
Yes.
The location was the corner of Northern and Marathon.
Yes.
It is a popular teen spot.
Yes, it's a popular teen spot.
It is not known for gang violence.
No, I was really surprised when I got the call too.
You arrived at 8:10.
Yes.
When you arrived, the first thing you noticed was some boys in a big fight.
Yes, there's about 4 or 5 of them.
Then you noticed some headlights down the street.
Sorry.
Then you noticed some headlights down the street.
That wasn't directly after. But I did notice headlights down the street.
The headlights, they were bright.
Yes, I wouldn't say they were dim.
And it looked like she had her brights on.
I couldn't tell.
Then you saw two females.
Yes, I saw 2 females.
And they were screaming. Your goal was to get them out of harm's way.
Yes, it only took a second.
You wanted to protect the teenagers that were there,
Yeah, all of them.
and you turned to save them.
As my job as a police officer, I had to make sure they were safe.
You turned away from the Jedi.
I turned away for 1 second.
After the girls were safe, you went back to look at the car. And then you noticed 2 boys on top of the car,
Yes.
beating the car.
Yes.
Then the car came to a stop,
Yes.
and the boys flew off.
Yes.
One landed in the yard.
Yes.
You went to check if he was okay.
I wanted to make sure he was okay, but I drew my gun just in case. Went to see the driver. Rachel.
Next you approached the car.
Yes.
You later found out that the driver was Rachel Citron.
Yes.
You then arrested Rachel Citron.
Yes.
You
I told
brought
her
her?
she could have killed someone.
You brought her to the precinct,
Yes.
where you found out that her earlobe had been torn,
Yes.
and that she needed stitches.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
I think people rest their case.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Speaking on behalf of one of the...
Prosecution rests their case.
Okay, fine. All right, defense may proceed.
We call Rachel Citron to the stand.
Okay, fine.
May I inquire?
You may.
Please state your name for the record.
Rachel Citron.
Good afternoon, Ms. Citron.
Good.
Directing your attention to September 1st, 2011. Where were you that night?
I was at Joy's house.
And who were you with?
I was with Joy, Roy, Stefan, and myself.
What did you do after spending some time at Joy's house?
We left for McDonald's.
Why did you want to go to McDonald's?
I was something that we did when we were younger, and we thought it would be retro, so we went back.
How did you get there?
I drove my uncle's 2005 VW Jetta.
About what time did you arrive at McDonald's?
I'd say around 8:00 p.m.
And what did you do after getting to McDonald's?
There was no room in the parking lot, so I dropped my friends off and I parked a block down on Marathon.
And besides your own friends, who else was there?
I saw Robbie, George, Henry, and Susan.
And how do you know these people?
Robbie and I have been in almost every class together. We're academically very competitive. Susan and I used to be close in middle school. We kind of drifted apart, but we got back together at our senior year, and I don't really know George or Henry.
What happened after your two groups met?
I saw Susan and Steph off to the side in an argument.
And can you please explain what happened during this argument?
They were yelling back and forth, and then other people got called over.
Who, if anyone, joined into this argument?
Roy, George, Henry, and Robbie were called over.
Please explain what happened as they were joined. What did you do when you saw?
I wanted them to stop. I told them that we were going to get arrested, but nobody stopped.
And who, if anyone, responded to this?
Robbie came over to me.
What did he do?
He cursed at me, and he ripped my earring out of my ear.
How did you feel after someone just ripped your earring out of your ear?
It was excruciating. I was in so much pain. It bled everywhere, all over my new shirt, and I was in shock.
How serious was the injury to your ear?
It was really bad. I needed stitches.
What did you think at this point?
I didn't really know what to do. I was in shock, so I mouthed to Joy, "What should I do?" And she told me to go get the car.
What were you thinking as you were going back to the vehicle?
I was in a lot of pain, and I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't want to leave my friends, so I went back to go get them.
Please give an estimate on how fast you were driving back to the scene.
I'd say maybe 40 to 50 miles per hour, but at the time I didn't think it was that fast.
Explain what happened as you got close to the plane.
I started to slow down because there were people, and all of a sudden Robbie, and it was either George or Henry, just jumped on top of my car.
What were they doing on top of your car?
Robbie was on the roof, and he had either a bottle or a branch and made dents and were beating it, and Robbie or George broke my windshield.
What was your reaction to this?
I was already crying from my ear. I was terrified and shocked, so I stopped the car. I wanted them to get off.
What occurred when you stopped the car?
They both flew off. I think Robbie flew into a yard.
How did you feel after seeing this?
I was really worried. I thought he might have been dead, so I went over to make sure that he was okay. And he moved, so I knew he was alive.
What happened after this?
A police officer came over and arrested him.
No further questions.
Wish to correct? Yes, no? Okay, no? Okay. You may step down.
She's gonna be.
What? I'm sorry, that's right. Okay, you got correct. Why?
You had a half beer that night.
Yes.
You also had a slice of cold pizza. So you weren't drunk.
No.
You could think clearly.
Yes.
You could see clearly.
Yeah, I can see that.
You went to McDonald's after a meeting at Joy's house. You dropped your friends off before you parked.
Yes.
Then you went to the parking lot.
Yes.
You then saw Susan and Stefan off to the side.
Yes, I
Then they started yelling at each other, correct?
did. Yes.
Then Henry, George, and Roy went over.
And Robbie.
And that was when the fight started.
Yes.
And you wanted to stop the fight.
Yeah, and we were going to get arrested.
So you called them morons.
Yes.
And you called them idiots.
Yes.
In the name of stopping the fight.
Yes.
Robert allegedly cursed at you.
Yes, he did.
And then ripped out your ear.
Yeah, he ripped it out of my ear.
Without any provocation.
None.
So you provoked him.
No, I did not.
But I asked you if he ripped it out without any provocation, and you said no.
I didn't do anything for him to rip my earring out of my ear.
So is that a yes?
I didn't do anything for him to rip my earring out of my ear.
Well, you said no. So you must
To
have.
what?
I asked you if he ripped it out without any provocation, and you said no. So is that a yes,
Can you
then?
reword the question?
Objection.
Ask and answer.
Well, she's asking to clarify it. I would allow, as she's asked, you want to rephrase the question, that's what she's saying to you. So I will allow that. You can rephrase the question, go ahead.
Robbie ripped your earring out of your ear
Yes.
without any provocation.
Yes.
No further.
Did your ear hurt after Robbie pulled it off?
Yes, it was bleeding everywhere.
And it got all over your new top?
Yes.
And your mom was gonna get mad?
Yes.
Did you try to clean your ear?
At the time, no.
Did you try to look for help?
I tried to stop the fighting, if that's how.
No, as in help for your ear.
No, I didn't.
Did you try to look for a first aid kit?
No.
Once getting to your car, you thought you should leave.
Yes.
And you had a chance to leave.
Yeah, I guess.
But instead, you didn't.
I stayed.
You started speeding down the marathon, correct?
I wouldn't say speeding.
Well, it's 40 to 50 miles an hour.
Yes.
And on a narrow road.
I guess.
So it's speeding.
Okay.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
You're also crying at the time.
I'm sorry?
You were also crying at the time.
Oh, yes.
And you're wiping your eyes from the tears.
Yes.
And when you arrived to the fight, you saw there were cop cars?
Yes.
There were 3.
Yes.
Even noticing the cop cars, you still carried on. Yes?
Yes.
Once you got there, Robert jumped onto your car.
Yes.
Correct. And somebody else?
It was either George or Henry.
And they were banging on your roof?
Yes.
And you slammed the brakes, correct?
Yeah.
And Robert went flying into the air.
Yeah.
And you yourself thought that he was dead.
Yes.
And you were confronted by a cop.
Yes, I was.
And they said you could have killed somebody.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
I'd like to redirect.
Go ahead.
Now, before Robert ripped your earring out of your ear, did he say anything to you?
Yeah,
What did he say?
he called me a bitch.
And when you were going towards your car, you could have gone to get help for your ear.
Yeah, I could have.
And you wanted to save your friends.
Yeah, that was my main goal.
And so you went back.
Yes.
No further questions.
May I inquire?
You may inquire. The first
sorry.
trial we ever had where the prosecution was also a police officer and a witness, and the defendant is a lawyer, and so on and so forth. Rather, as I've come to the end of my life, I've seen everything. Go ahead, swear in a witness.
Please state your name for the record.
Joy Davis.
Where do you live?
127 Main Street in Green.
Let me direct your attention to the evening of September 1st, 2011. What did you do first on that night?
A bunch of old friends came to my house.
Who was present there?
Roy, Steph, and Rachel and myself.
How do you know Rachel Citron?
We used to be close.
Can you explain?
I trusted her a lot. She helped me through my parents' divorce.
How's your friendship now?
We're not as close anymore.
And around what time did these people come to your house?
Around 7 o'clock p.m.
What was going on at your house at around 7 o'clock?
I know Roy and Steph were drinking some vodka they had brought, and Rachel had about a half a beer, but I didn't drink anything. I wasn't in the mood that night.
What happened after this?
We went to the town.
How'd you get there?
In Rachel's uncle's 2005 Jetta.
What time did you arrive?
Around 8 o'clock.
What'd you do when you pulled in?
The parking lot was full, so Rachel dropped us off and she found a parking space.
Where did she park?
On that time.
Who'd you see when you arrived, if anyone?
Susan, George, Henry, and Robbie.
Please describe your relationship with Robbie.
I don't really like him.
Why don't you like him?
He's very arrogant and cocky.
What happened once you noticed Robbie and company?
I saw Susan and stuff arguing,
What do you mean arguing?
yelling back and forth, and then I saw Susan punch them.
Who else got involved, if anyone?
George and Henry.
What was Robbie doing at the time?
Him and Rachel were arguing.
Well, what do you mean by arguing?
They were yelling back and forth, and out of nowhere, Robbie just ripped Rachel's earring out of her ear. There was blood all over her.
How did Rachel react?
She told me to call 911, and she just ran off.
What were you doing during this?
I was standing on the side, reading a text message I received.
How long was the text?
Around 100 characters long.
How long did it take you to read?
I mean, about 3 seconds. I am a teen.
When did you next see Rachel?
In her car, driving down the street.
How fast was she driving?
I'm not sure, but I know she slowed down.
What happened as she came toward everyone?
She stopped. And George and Henry hopped on her. I mean, George and Robbie hopped on her car.
What did they do on the car?
They were banging on her car. I mean, they just ruined the car.
What was Rachel's response?
She slammed on the brakes.
What happened to Robbie?
He went flying off into somebody's yard.
And what happened next?
The cops arrived, and they went to Rachel's car and took out the car and made her arrest.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Good afternoon, Miss Davis.
Good afternoon.
You attend Boston University,
Yes, I did.
and before that you went to Great Neck South High School,
Yes.
and you knew Rachel there.
Yes.
Rachel helped you study for your SATs.
Yes.
She was there when your parents got divorced.
Yes, she was.
She came with you to the doctor.
Yes.
She was the only one who you asked to go to the doctor with you.
Yeah.
You like Rachel Citron.
Yeah.
You consider Rachel to be a friend.
Yeah.
You trust Rachel very well.
Yeah.
Because she's your friend, you would help her if she's in trouble.
Yes.
Today, she's in trouble. Okay, now let me direct your attention to September 1st, 2011. You have a phone.
Yes.
The phone was with you on September 1st, 2011.
Yes, it was.
The same night that Rachel and Rob were having an argument.
Yes.
You received a text from a camp friend that night.
Yes.
You had to look at your phone to read that text.
Yes, I did.
While looking at your phone, you heard shouting.
Yes.
You looked up from your phone to see what was going on. At that point, you saw Robert yank out Rachel's earring.
Yes, I did.
You then saw Rachel leave.
Yes.
Rachel was alone when she left.
Yes.
Next time you saw Rachel, she was in her uncle's Jetta.
Just so everybody knows, one of the things that you have to do in the courtroom is to say yes or no. Doesn't satisfy as an answer. They've only done it a few times. Some witnesses do it every time. I don't understand. We have to tell them. That's what you know. Okay. Go ahead.
You saw that the Jetta was moving towards the group.
Yes.
You then saw Robert and George jump on top of the Jetta.
Yes.
The Jetta continued to move
Yes.
until you saw it jerk,
Yes.
and then accelerate,
Yes.
and finally came to a quick stop.
Yes.
This is when Robbie flew off the car
Yes.
and landed in someone's yard.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. No further questions.
Right hand.
May I inquire?
Surely.
Please state your name for the record.
I am Dr. Lauren Michaels.
Dr. Michaels, where do you practice?
I practice at LIJ North Shore. I'm in New York.
And how do you know the defendant?
I do not know her.
Where were you the night of September 1st, 2011?
I was on the corner of Marathon and Northern, and there was a McDonald's near there.
What did the area look like?
It was well lit. There were some trees on the side of the road.
What did you see while you were standing on the corner?
I saw a group of men fighting. I also saw a car coming towards them.
About how fast was the car going?
It didn't seem like it was going too terribly fast.
And what direction was the car going?
It didn't seem like it was aiming in any particular direction.
Good afternoon. What occurred after the car came?
Well, it seemed like a few men attacked the car. One of them got onto the roof of the car, the other got onto the hood. And it appeared they were beating it with something in their hand.
Describe what these two men were doing.
They were just banging on the car. They had something. They were holding something.
After this, how did the car respond?
It stopped abruptly. The man on the roof flew off, and the driver came out.
Describe the driver who came out.
She was a young woman. It appeared that her ear was hurt. She had blood all over her shirt. And to me, it looked like she was a victim of something.
Describe what you mean by victim.
Well, she was a bloody mess, and she was saying, I was just trying to help my friends.
Thank you. No further questions. The defense rests.
Wait a minute. Yes, I think fought, so yeah. You may want to rest.
May I inquire?
You surely can.
Good afternoon, Dr. Michaels. How are you?
Good.
You are an emergency room doctor?
Yes.
You work at Long Island Jewish North Shore Hospital?
Yes.
You work long shifts. After these shifts, you are tired.
Yeah.
Let me bring your attention to the events of September 1st, 2011. That day, you worked a long shift at LIJ.
Yes.
After your...
The prosecution has the burden. The burden to prove Rachel guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And they did not prove that burden to you. Based on the testimonies that you have heard and the evidence that you have seen, you will find that Rachel Citron is innocent. Now with the first witness, Robbie Rodriguez. This is the same Robbie who was a bully. Not only a bully to Rachel, but other 9th grade girls. innocent girls. And he was tried by the student tribunal and convicted of bullying. This is also the same Robbie that was part of the SAT cheating scandal. Robbie is also violent, and he was bullying her that day in the parking lot. And he tore out her earring, completely unprovoked. He caused her to cry and the blood to bleed all over her shirt. And he didn't do anything about it. He didn't care. He just went back to his friends and fight. And his violence didn't just stop there. It continued into the street. He was on top of a car that he jumped onto the roof of. Now, Your Honor, we all know that Robbie is a human being and not Superman or Spider-Man. There's only one way that he could have gotten onto the roof of that car at the speed he says the car was going. And that is if he had a running start, first jumped onto the bumper, then the hood, and then finally to the roof. And that story does not collaborate with the speed. So that must mean that Rachel Citron was going slow and was slowing down even more when she was approaching the group. And then Robbie said that he got a good look into Rachel's eyes. That cannot be because the windshield was broken. And we all know that when you look into a broken mirror, the image is not clear. It is shattered. And Robbie had also been drinking that night. He had quite a few beers. And Robbie also wears glasses. And he was not wearing them that night or on top of the car. We cannot trust what Robbie has said. On to the next witness, Susan. Susan said that she's best friends with Robbie. And she's more loyal to Robbie. So of course she's going to say anything that makes Rachel look bad and Robbie look good. Susan had also been drinking that night, quite a few beers. She had also taken allergy medication earlier that day, Claritin D, the 24-hour. And allergy medication makes you drowsy, and on top of that, mixed with the alcohol, her vision and hearing had been impaired. So she cannot trust anything she has testified to. And she's also said that the police cars were coming then, and they were sirens going on, loud sirens. And she said that she heard the boys yelling for Rachel to stop on top of the car. But she could not have heard that because of the loud sirens right next to her. The next witness, police officer Joe Phoenix. He said that his main focus at that time was to get those two young women out of the way, and rightfully so. That is his job, and he did it. But in doing so, from making his focus on those two young women, getting them out of harm's way, he took his eyes off of Rachel's Jetta driving down the street. So he did not see her car slowing down as she approached the group. When he looked back, the two boys were already on the Jetta. Joy Davis. Joy said she saw the fight occur, and she saw Robbie rip out her earring, completely unprovoked. And she also saw Rachel's Jetta driving slow as she was approaching the group. She saw it slow down. And her story corroborates with what Rachel said. Dr. Lauren Michaels. He's completely unbiased. He does not know defendant Rachel. He does not know Robbie. And he does not know any of her friends or his friends. He has no reason to lie and no reason to side with one or the other. And Dr. Lauren Michaels, his story corroborates with Joy's and Rachel's. He said he did not think the car was going fast or was aiming for anyone in particular. And yes, he was crossing the street. When something so traumatic is going on right in front of you, any human being's eyes would drift towards that fight. And he saw very clearly what happened. Rachel Citron was justified in her actions with what she did. For the first count of assault, the prosecution did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that Rachel had the intent to hurt Robbie. She was worried about Robbie. When she got out of the car, she went to go see if he was okay. She was clearly worried about him and did not mean to hurt him. Rachel clearly was only going to see her friends. That was her main goal. On the third count of assault, the prosecution did not prove depraved indifference. Rachel did care for others' safety. She only did this because of her friends, and she wanted to get them out of immediate danger. She felt that she was their only hope. prosecution also did not prove reckless conduct. Rachel was not reckless in her actions. She was not drunk. Didn't drink earlier that day. She was completely sober. And she was right in what she did. She had to get her friends out of there because someone could have gotten killed or very seriously hurt in that instant. And the grave risk of death to another. When Rachel was driving down that street, she was driving slow, and he was slowed down even more when she was approaching the group. So she was not in any danger to anybody else. Robbie put himself in danger. He didn't have to jump onto her car, but he did. He could have moved to the side, but he jumped on her car. He was attacking Rachel. He was banging on her car with beer bottles and branches. He even broke the windshield. He attacked Rachel, and Rachel was concerned for her own safety at this point. And so Rachel did what any reasonable person would have done. She stopped the car. She stopped the car to protect herself and to get Robbie off of it. Now, Your Honor, you've heard all the testimonies and seen all the evidence. And now it's up to you to make the decision. The right decision. And that is, Rachel Citron is innocent.
On September 1st, 2011, Robert Rodriguez was scared for his life. He was on top of a car, shouting and pleading for the driver, Rachel Citron, to slow down. But the next thing he knows, the defendant suddenly stopped short, violently flinging Robert off of the car and bam, landed all the way in someone else's lawn. He woke up surrounded by EMTs and was hospitalized for several weeks. Today, we, the prosecution, had the burden to prove to you each and every element of the crimes that the defendant has been charged with beyond a reasonable doubt, and we have met our burden. It is clear from the testimony and it is clear from the evidence that the defendant is guilty on both counts of assault in the first degree and was by no means justified in her actions on September 1st, 2011. Let's look at the testimony that was given today. First, you had the opportunity to hear from our witness, Robert Rodriguez, who told you that the defendant and him were constantly competing, did not have a good history, and Rachel felt that she was bullied by him. That night, Robert lost his cool and pulled out one of the defendant's earrings, but the defendant took her revenge a step too far. When the defendant came speeding down the road, she was aimed for Robert and she was aimed to hurt him. Panicked, Robert jumped on the car and screamed and pounded on the car so that the defendant would slow down. But what did the defendant do when the men were on her car? She slammed on the brakes. It is common sense that if someone is on your car and you slam on the brakes, that person will go flying. There are no seatbelts on top of a car. There are no safety devices on top of a car. And when Rachel Citron came to that short stop, there was nothing stopping Robert Rodriguez from flying into someone else's lawn and getting seriously hurt. The defense claimed that Robert's actions were superhuman, but he stated that the defendant left him no other options and in the heat of the moment jumped onto the car. The defense's accusation is simply a distraction that the defense is using, and the defense will also try and distract you with the fact that Robert was drinking that night and he wasn't wearing glasses, or that he was accused of cheating. But these are all distractions, and you should push them aside and focus on the actions of the defendant. You have heard from Susan Abad, someone directly involved in the incident, that the defendant's car was racing towards the people at an outrageous speed. This not only demonstrates the defendant's depraved indifference to human life, but also the defendant's reckless conduct. Susan testifies further that the Jetta was aimed directly at Robert, proving the defendant's intent to hurt him. The defense has claimed that Susan had also been drinking and took a Claritin and looked into the headlights, so they claim she didn't really see what was going on. But all of this is yet another distraction, and what Susan did see that night was a car barreling down the road towards Robert, towards a group of people, and she did see the actions of the defendant, which ultimately resulted in Robert's injuries. You heard from Police Officer Fiends, a 10-year veteran of the New York City Police Department who even specializes in assessing fights like these. He was already on the scene and observed the defendant's car drive at an excessive speed into the crowd, creating a fatal risk for all of those present, and observed the car stop short and fling Robert into a nearby yard. The defense has tried to distract you again, stating that the police officer was too busy trying to move out of the way of the defendant's barreling car to know what was happening. But you heard from Officer Fiends himself that he did see what happened, and he saw Robert on the defendant's car, and he saw the car come to an abrupt stop, and it was that stop that led to the injuries that Robert sustained. You heard next from the defense and their witnesses. First, you heard from the defendant, who stated in her testimony that she and Robert were competitive and did not like him. When Robert pulled out her earring, she was upset, she was angry, and she wanted to hurt him. The defense tried to plead justification, but the defendant not only had the ability to leave the situation, she acknowledged that ability and knowingly went back to the fight. The defendant's argument that she was just trying to save her friends is a last-minute attempt to try and explain away her actions. Help was already there, and her friends were no longer in danger. And yet the defendant thought it necessary to drive her car at 40 to 50 miles an hour down a narrow road into a crowd of people. And then, when Robert jumped on the car, the defendant intentionally slammed on the brakes, causing Robert severe injuries. Let us not forget that the defendant is the most interested witness in this case and has the most at stake. So when you examine her testimony, keep that in mind. Most importantly, keep that in mind when you examine the inconsistencies in her story. Next, you heard from Joy Davis, who claimed she saw the whole fight, but remember what you learned during cross-examination. She was texting during that time. You also learned that Joy Davis is biased. She and the defendant have been friends for years, and Joy Davis fully trusts the defendant. Not only this, Joy even stated she doesn't like Robert. Her testimony as well should be scrutinized. Finally, you heard from Dr. Michaels, and you learned from the cross-examination of Dr. Michaels that he was focused on crossing the street at the time of the incident. He was focused on not getting hit by a car himself, and with all the trees and the traffic, he could not have had all of his focus on the incident of September 1st, 2011. So keep that in mind when you examine his testimony. When you examine all the testimony you have heard today, you will find that there are facts that are not in dispute. First, the defendant drove her car on a narrow street into a group of people. Next, that Robert and George jumped on the car, and when Robert was on the defendant's car, the defendant hit the brakes hard, sending Robert flying. Finally, it is indisputed that it was this action, the actions of the defendant, that caused Robert Rodriguez to suffer severe injuries. In summary, Robert sustained serious injuries such as a punctured lung, broken ribs, a damaged liver, a damaged spleen, and he even had to wait to go to Columbia University. The defendant intended to hurt Robert. She had a past history with Robert, she was angry at him for pulling out her earring, and she knowingly came to a stop with him on the car. The defendant put those involved in the incident in danger, showed depraved indifference to human life, reckless behavior, and caused a fatal risk for all of those involved. Not only that, but it is clear the defendant was not justified in her actions. Firstly, she had the ability to retreat the situation and knowingly went back. Secondly, there was no imminent deadly force when she made the decision to drive her car into a group of people, as the cops were already there. And finally, because of that, the defendant had no reasonable excuse to use deadly force. You have heard all the testimony and you have all the evidence. Hold the defendant accountable for her actions, and find the defendant guilty on both accounts of assault in the first degree, and find her not justified in her actions on September 1st, 2011. Find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
You.